When mathematics meet madness, the Arcturus Syndicate had ruled the galaxy for 500 years through perfect calculation. In the great crystal spire that floated above the gas giant Nexus, 15 different alien species gathered around a table that hummed with mathematical precision. Each race had tried to resist the Syndicate once, and each had learned that resistance was simply a numbers game they could never win. General Thexara materialized at the head of the table, her form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. The Voidborn were beings of living plasma, masters of probability and quantum mechanics. When they calculated the odds of victory, they were never wrong. Her voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. "We have discovered a problem," she announced, causing ripples of concern among the assembled representatives. "A new species has emerged in Sector 7749. They call themselves humans, and their expansion pattern defies all logical analysis." Commander Xyloth, whose metallic scales gleamed like polished silver, leaned forward with interest. The iron scale species had been warriors for millennia before the Syndicate absorbed them. They understood conquest better than most. "What makes them different from the other primitive species we've encountered?" Thexara gestured, and a holographic display filled the center of the room. Star charts showed human expansion over the past 50 years, with red dots marking their colonies and blue lines showing their trade routes. "Observe their growth pattern. It follows no mathematical model we can identify." High strategist Krenax, a tall being with an elongated skull and 6 arms, studied the display with interest. The Mindweavers were telepaths who could process information faster than quantum computers. When Krenax spoke, his mental voice touched every mind in the room simultaneously. "Their expansion is chaotic," he said, confusion evident in his mental projection. "They establish colonies in systems with poor resources while ignoring rich systems nearby. They build trade routes that are inefficient by any measure. Some of their settlements serve no strategic purpose at all." "Exactly," Thexara replied. "We have run 47,000 simulations trying to predict their next moves. Our success rate is only 23%. This is unprecedented." A creature that resembled a giant crystalline spider clicked its appendages together nervously. This was Architect Vesithin of the Geometric Collective, a species that had built perfect cities across 1,000 worlds. "Perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand proper expansion protocols." "That was our initial assessment," Thexara admitted. "However, their technology is advancing at an alarming rate. In 50 years, they have progressed from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel. Their rate of innovation exceeds our most optimistic projections." Commander Xyloth's scales darkened to a deep bronze, a sign of concern among his people. "Show us their military capabilities." The holographic display shifted to show human warships. They were ugly things by galactic standards, built with harsh angles and jutting weapon arrays. Where most species designed their vessels with mathematical precision and aesthetic beauty, human ships looked like they had been assembled by someone who cared only about function. "Their fleet composition makes no sense," Krenax observed. "They use different ship designs for identical functions. Some vessels carry weapons that would be more effective on larger ships, while others use defensive systems that would work better on smaller craft. There is no standardization, no efficiency. And yet," Thexara said grimly, "when we observed their war games, their success rate against our tactical simulations was 78%. They consistently defeat strategies that should guarantee victory." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 5 centuries, the Syndicate had conquered through superior mathematics. They calculated exactly how many ships to send, precisely which weapons to use, and exactly how long each battle would last. They had never been wrong. "There is more," Thexara continued. "We intercepted their military communications during a recent exercise. Listen to this." A human voice filled the chamber, speaking in the crude sounds that their species used for communication. The translation appeared as text on the display. "Alpha Team, ignore the manual and try something crazy. Bravo Team, you see that gap in their formation? Yeah, I know it's a trap, but let's spring it anyway. Charlie team, I want you to do the exact opposite of what they expect. Another voice responded, Sir, that plan has a 73% chance of failure according to our computers. The first voice laughed, a sound that somehow conveyed both humor and determination. Good. If our computers think it's crazy, their computers won't see it coming either. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing unease. This was not how military operations were supposed to work. Orders should be precise, strategies should be mathematically sound, and no commander should ever deliberately choose tactics with a high probability of failure. They make decisions based on intuition, Krenak said, the word tasting strange in his mental voice. They value creativity over calculation. This is not logical. Logic is not their strength, agreed a new voice. The speaker was barely visible, a shadow that seemed to exist between dimensions. This was Observer Nixavoid of the Phantom Collective, beings who had mastered stealth and surveillance. We have been watching their society for decades. They solve problems through trial and error rather than theoretical analysis. They frequently attempt solutions that should not work, and somehow make them work anyway. Admiral Corthan, an aquatic being whose transparent body revealed internal organs that pulsed with bioluminescent light, spoke from his water-filled chamber. Their naval traditions are particularly disturbing. We observed archived records of their ancient sea battles. When facing superior forces, they would often charge directly into enemy formations rather than retreating to regroup. They called it ramming speed. Suicidal, muttered Commander Ziloth. And yet, Admiral Corthan continued, such tactics often resulted in victory against larger, better-equipped fleets. They seem to thrive in situations where success should be impossible. Thexara solidified her form, taking on a more human-like appearance to emphasize the seriousness of her next words. Analysis of their cultural data reveals a dangerous pattern. Humans have a concept they call the underdog. They actively celebrate victories achieved against impossible odds. Their entertainment media is filled with stories of small forces, defeating much larger ones through determination and creativity. This explains their expansion pattern, realized Architect Vesthin. They are not trying to be efficient. They are trying to be unpredictable. The question before us, Thexara said, is whether we should act now while they are still relatively small, or continue to observe and gather data. High Strategist Krenax's mental presence grew stronger as he processed vast amounts of information. If we continue to study them, we risk allowing them to grow stronger. However, if we attack now, we may be walking into a trap we cannot calculate. They currently have 47 colonies and approximately 200 warships, reported Observer Nixvoid. Our local fleet strength is 385 vessels. Mathematical victory is assured. Commander Ziloth stood, his metallic frame towering over the table. I recommend immediate action. We deploy the perfect fleet to their largest colony. When they see their civilians destroyed, they will surrender according to standard protocols. And, if they do not surrender, asked Admiral Corthan, then we destroy them completely, Ziloth replied. Better to eliminate a potential threat now than face an unpredictable enemy later. Thexara looked around the table, reading the agreement in every face, tendril, and energy signature. Very well, we will deploy Battle Group Omega to the human colony they call New Terra. 85 ships should be more than sufficient. What? If they send reinforcements? Asked Architect Vesithin. Our intelligence indicates their nearest battle group consists of a single dreadnought and its escort ships, Nixavoid reported. Even if they respond immediately, they would be facing odds of 85 to 12. The mathematics are insurmountable. Then it is decided, Thexara announced. General Order 7749. The human species represents a statistical anomaly that threatens galactic stability. They will be given one opportunity to surrender. If they refuse, they will be eliminated. As the Council dissolved and the various species began preparing for war, none of them noticed the small probe that had been recording their entire conversation. Hidden in the quantum shadows between dimensions, the device had been listening with interest to every word. The probe belonged to the USS Defiance, and its captain had been waiting for exactly this kind of intelligence. Captain Sarah Mitchell had spent 3 years studying syndicate tactics, looking for weaknesses in their mathematical precision. Now she finally had what she needed: confirmation that they were coming, knowledge of their fleet size, and most importantly, proof that they still didn't understand what they were really fighting. The probe transmitted its data across faster-than-light channels, and within hours, every human military commander in the sector knew what was coming. Unlike the syndicate, the humans didn't call a council meeting. They didn't run calculations or debate probabilities. Instead, Captain Mitchell sent a simple message to Earth Command: enemy fleet incoming, 85 ships versus our 1. Odds look about right for a fair fight. Request permission to engage. The response came back within minutes. Permission granted. Give them hell, Storm. Captain Sarah Storm. Mitchell smiled as she read the message. The syndicate was about to learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable species. They were excellent at mathematics, but they had never learned the most important lesson of human warfare. Sometimes the craziest plan is exactly the right plan. When chaos conquers order, the USS Defiance hung in space like a predator, waiting to strike. She was not beautiful by alien standards. Human warships never were. Where the Syndicate's vessels curved gracefully through space with mathematical perfection, the Defiance was all angles and armor, bristling with weapons that had been designed by engineers who cared more about effectiveness than elegance. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display that showed 85 enemy ships approaching New Terra. The civilian evacuation was proceeding as quickly as possible, but there were still 200,000 people on the surface who couldn't be moved in time. The Syndicate fleet would arrive in 6 hours, and the mathematics were simple. One human dreadnought could not possibly defeat 85 alien warships. Captain, called Chief Engineer Marcus Torres from his station, his voice carrying the slight accent of his Mexican heritage, the reactor core is operating at 110% efficiency. We can push it higher if needed, but we'll start risking containment failure. How much higher? Mitchell asked, her green eyes never leaving the tactical display. Maybe 140%, but that's Russian roulette territory. Could give us the power we need, or could turn us into a very pretty explosion. Navigation Officer Elena Vasquez looked up from her console, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail that couldn't quite contain her natural curls. Captain, I've been running intercept calculations. If we want to engage them before they reach the planet, we need to leave in the next 30 minutes. And fly right into their optimal engagement range, added communications specialist David Chen, adjusting his glasses as he monitored enemy transmissions. Their formation is designed to catch us in a crossfire from multiple angles. Perfect mathematical coverage. Mitchell nodded. The Syndicate had done exactly what she expected. They had calculated the optimal approach vector, the ideal weapon range, and the most efficient formation to guarantee victory. It was textbook perfect, which meant it was also completely predictable. Wrench, she said, using Torres's nickname. I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. My favorite kind of request, Captain. Can you make our reactor signature look unstable, like we're having engine problems? Torres grinned, understanding. Immediately. You want them to think we're desperate enough to push our engines past safety limits? Exactly. Elena, plot us a course that looks like we're trying to run. Make it sloppy, like someone who's panicking would fly. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. You want me to fly badly on purpose? The worse, the better. David, start broadcasting emergency signals. Make it sound like we're in trouble and trying to retreat. Chen's fingers flew over his console. What kind of emergency? Engine failure, life support problems, whatever sounds convincing. I want them to think we're a crippled ship running scared. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had served under Captain Mitchell for 3 years, and they had learned to trust her unconventional tactics. If Storm Mitchell had a plan, it was probably going to be spectacular and completely insane. Captain, called Weapons Officer Lieutenant Jake Rivera from his station. Shouldn't we be preparing for defensive action? Mitchell turned to look at him, her smile sharp as a blade. Jake, how many times have you seen me play defense? Rivera laughed despite himself. Never, ma'am. You always say the best defense is making the enemy so confused they forget to shoot back, Mitchell finished. Today we're going to teach the Syndicate why humans are so hard to predict. The Defiance began its performance, broadcasting distress signals while following an erratic course that suggested engine problems. To the approaching Syndicate fleet, it looked like the human ship was trying to flee but failing due to mechanical difficulties. General Thexara studied the readings from her flagship, the mathematical perfection of her energy form, flickering with satisfaction. The human vessel appears to be experiencing multiple system failures. Their course corrections are inefficient and their power output is fluctuating. They are fleeing, observed Commander Ziloth from his position at the tactical station. This matches predicted behavior patterns for inferior forces facing overwhelming odds. Their distress signals indicate engine failure and life support problems, reported the communications officer. They are requesting assistance from any nearby vessels. High Strategist Kreenax extended his mental awareness, trying to sense the emotional state of the human crew. What he found confused him. General, I am detecting strange readings from the human ship. Their crew should be experiencing fear and desperation, but instead I sense anticipation, excitement. Perhaps humans experience terror differently than other species, Thexara suggested. Continue the pursuit. We will disable them and take prisoners for study. The Syndicate fleet moved with mathematical precision, their formation designed to herd the fleeing human ship toward a predetermined intercept point. They had calculated the exact moment when the Defiance would be forced to stop running and face them. Every variable had been accounted for, every probability measured and weighed. What they had not calculated was that the human ship was not actually fleeing. Elena, how's our performance looking? Mitchell asked quietly. Terrible, Captain. I've managed to make us look completely incompetent. We're wobbling around like a drunk pilot, and our course corrections are all wrong. Perfect. Wrench reactor status? Running smooth as silk at 98% efficiency, but broadcasting power fluctuations that suggest imminent failure. I've even added some fake radiation leaks to make it look convincing. David, are they taking the bait? Chen monitored the enemy communications, his translation software parsing the alien languages in real time. They're discussing capture protocols, Captain. They want to take us alive for interrogation. Even better. Jake, weapon status? All systems green and ready, Captain. Kinetic cannons loaded with depleted uranium cores, plasma torpedoes armed, and missile tubes hot. Mitchell checked the tactical display one more time. The Syndicate fleet was now exactly where she wanted them, spread out in a wide formation designed to prevent the Defiance from escaping, with their most powerful ships positioned to deliver the killing blow once the human vessel was disabled. All right, people, she said, her voice carrying the calm confidence that had earned her the nickname Storm. Time to show them why humans are the galaxy's favorite underdogs. The transformation was instant and shocking. The Defiance stopped wobbling and snapped into a perfect attack vector, its engines roaring to full power as it accelerated directly toward the center of the Syndicate formation. The distress signals cut off, replaced by a single transmission that every alien ship received simultaneously. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Navy. You came to my neighborhood looking for a fight. Congratulations. You found one. General Thexara's energy form flared with surprise and anger. Impossible. Their engines were failing. It was a deception. Kreenax realized, his mental voice tight with shock. They were never trying to flee. They were positioning us exactly where they wanted us. The Defiance dove into the Syndicate formation like a wolf among sheep, but not in the way that any military academy would have taught. Instead of following a calculated attack pattern, Captain Mitchell seemed to be making tactical decisions, on pure instinct. Elena, take us through the gap between their cruiser line and their destroyers. Captain, that's exactly where they want us to go. It's a trap. I know. Spring it. The Defiance flew directly into the Syndicate's carefully prepared kill zone, where overlapping fields of fire should have destroyed any vessel instantly. But as the alien ships opened fire, the human dreadnought was no longer where their computers expected it to be. Wrench, emergency power to forward shields. You got it, Captain. Elena rolling dive, then snap turn to starboard. That maneuver violates about 6 laws of physics. Since when has that stopped us? The Defiance twisted through space in patterns that no military computer could predict, because they were not based on mathematical calculations. Mitchell was flying on instinct, making split-second decisions based on nothing more than her gut, feeling about what the enemy expected her to do, and then doing something completely different. The Syndicate's perfect formation began to collapse as their ships tried to track a target that moved like no warship should be able to move. Their weapons fire, calculated to hit specific coordinates at precise moments, struck empty space as the Defiance danced between their shots. Jake, target their command ship, the big crystalline one at the center. Got it, Captain. Kinetic cannons ready. Fire! The Defiance's main gun spoke with thunderous authority, launching depleted uranium shells at significant fractions of light speed. The Syndicate shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter moving at such velocities. General Thexara's flagship shuddered as 3 kinetic rounds punched through its hull like bullets through paper. The mathematical perfection of its structure collapsed as critical systems failed in cascading sequence. Damage report, Thexara demanded. Primary command systems offline, reported her tactical officer. Navigation compromised. Weapons array at 40% efficiency. How is this possible? One ship cannot defeat 85. But the Defiance was doing exactly that. Chief Engineer Torres had pushed the reactor beyond all safety limits, giving the ECR ship power that it was never designed to handle. Navigation Officer Vasquez was flying maneuvers that textbooks said were impossible. Weapons Officer Rivera was targeting ships in sequences that made no tactical sense, but somehow worked perfectly. David, patch me through to their command frequency, Mitchell ordered. You're live, Captain. Attention, Syndicate Fleet, Mitchell broadcast, her voice carrying across space to every alien vessel. You wanted to see how humans fight? We don't use your mathematics. We don't follow your rules. When you calculate the odds against us, we change the equation. The battle became a masterpiece of controlled chaos. The Defiance struck at targets that should have been too well defended to attack, using the Syndicate's own formation against them. When enemy ships tried to reposition to get clear shots, they found themselves blocking their own allies' firing solutions. Captain, called Rivera, we're down to 60% ammunition. Then we make every shot count. Elena, take us in close. I want to see the fear in their sensors. How close? Close enough to use the emergency thrusters as weapons. The Defiance accelerated to ramming speed, charging directly at a Syndicate battlecruiser. At the last possible second, Vasquez fired the maneuvering thrusters at full power, causing the massive human ship to skip sideways like a stone across water. The maneuver was impossible by any known law of physics, but it worked. As the Defiance passed within meters of the alien battlecruiser, Rivera fired every weapon the ship had directly into the enemy's hull at point-blank range. The alien vessel simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic rounds, plasma torpedoes, and missile strikes delivered simultaneously. 37 ships down, reported Chen, monitoring the tactical situation. The rest are starting to retreat. Let them go, Mitchell said, settling back into her captain's chair. They've learned what they came to learn. As the surviving Syndicate ships fled toward the edge of the system, General Thexara transmitted one final message. How? How does one ship defeat so many? Mitchell smiled as she replied, because we're human. We don't calculate our chances of success. We just make sure we succeed anyway. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Arcturus Syndicate, masters of mathematical warfare, had been defeated by a single human vessel using tactics that made no logical sense. Alien species that had lived in fear of Syndicate calculations for centuries suddenly realized that the galaxy's newest species had just proven that perfect mathematics could be beaten by imperfect courage. In the years that followed, no alien fleet would ever again assume that superior numbers guaranteed victory against humans. They had learned that some species could not be calculated, could not be predicted, and could not be defeated through mathematical perfection alone. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not through diplomacy or trade, but through the simple demonstration that sometimes the impossible was just another word for Tuesday.